cheers as he introduced the Olympic champion US men's hockey
This was
team.
embarrassing.
But tensions in the chamber too.
So there actually has been a couple of articles now that have been released about this specific incident where the men's Olympic team came out. And I thought, let's read them because I think it's important to understand how detrimental this has cost the men's Olympic team. The U.S. men's Olympic team hockey team won gold and then lost the room. This is from The Athletic. For a few hours on Sunday afternoon, the nation felt smaller. This America of vast divides and rickety social bridges deferred briefly to the unifying power of sports. Strangers high-fived in bars, grown-ups hugged with wet eyes. Politics and culture wars were suspended for the length of 3 heart-stopping periods of hockey and 1 cathartic overtime. The U.S. men's hockey team won Olympic gold for the first time since the Miracle on Ice 46 years ago, and for a time the joy belonged to everyone. By the next day, it didn't. In the immediate aftermath of their victory, the team took a customary congratulatory call from President Donald Trump, and some players laughed at a misogynistic joke about the gold-winning women's hockey team that many Americans wouldn't find funny. They celebrated in the locker room with beer-chugging FBI Director Kash Patel, who is now under scrutiny for using taxpayer money to fund a sports getaway. Then, after a wild night of partying in Miami following their return from Italy, some members of the team announced plans to step in the House chamber, a stage upon which symbolism is never neutral, and make an appearance at Trump's State of the Union. In normal times, this would be an obligatory celebration for a championship team. They take presidential calls. They party too hard. They visit Washington and stroll through the corridors of power. But this isn't a neutral climate. This isn't a neutral president. And in a nation this polarized, the proximity carries weight, whether the players are being intentional or merely naive. America no longer experiences these rituals in the same way, and it may never again. Athletes would be wise to recognize. I lost my train. In this climate, celebration is easily repurposed into political capital. The hockey team neither created this divide nor possessed a shrewd political instinct to wrap their victory in a partisan glow. But when they stepped so early into that brace, they neared their moment. It doesn't ruin what they accomplished in defeating a seemingly indomitable Canadian squad. But the widespread celebration is over now, and some of their goodwill has diminished. It would be a cop-out for me to blame only in the environment that they must navigate to rant about how everything is poisonously political now, to lament the possibility of sustained joy in a culture that incumbents outrage. These are all factors, but let's not infantilize this team. These are men who thrilled a nation and rocked the world, and as adults, they need to be more savvy. That goes for every prominent team in sports. It's nice, even expected, to be feted as a winner. But who's celebrating you? And why they're doing it and how they're doing it matters more. Trump, perhaps more than most modern presidents, understands the optics of standing next to winners. It normalizes him. It softens his cruel instincts and crude jokes, recasting them as locker room banter. It washes his reputation and reduces the impact of polls that indicate a significant majority of Americans disapprove of his second term. These champions have agency. In the afterglow of triumph, they have more agency than they ever will. They should be wary of giving it away so casually. No one can take that gold medal or how it made all of us feel away from the Team USA. For a fleeting moment, those players quieted our noisy room and made it less toxic, and they've already lost some of the room. It's not because they set out to divide it. It's just that in America right now, proximity to power distorts the meaning of everything around it. They misread the moment. In our current state, there is no such thing as incidental symbolism. The images and associations matter. They're almost as powerful as the accomplishment that led to them. Within 48 hours, their celebration drifted into a partisan orbit, and the unity thinned. Shared moments are precious now. The men's hockey team conjured some inspiration for an afternoon. That was the trophy to go with their medals. Then they dropped it. The lesson isn't that athletes should avoid recognition by political figures or avoid politics altogether. It's about understanding the game. When lawmakers bask in their championship glow, they gain more than the winners do. Power loves being in the victory of victory. It absorbs the thrill and the innocence, the easy patriotism, and redistributes it in a propagandized manner. While the players are celebrating, the leaders are calculating. Dominant national teams don't just represent greatness. They provide consensus or at least the possibility of it. Since Sunday, the gold medal hasn't come to mean less, but everything around it has shifted. 20 members of U.S. men's hockey Olympic team Teams USA's visibility in Washington functions as an endorsement, whether the players intend it to be or not. That may be why a handful of players have decided to stay away. However, the bulk of the team is expected to stand together. In sports, that's called being a good teammate. In this arena, they still will look like pawns. It's a costly image. What they've lost won't appear in a record book, and in a few years, the appearance will be a faint memory to most. I don't think so. I don't think it will, especially after Hellebuck got that Medal of Freedom. I don't think it will. But during a time in which every action seems consequential, they handed over the power of unity. Their triumph is now attached to Trump. His track record suggests it won't be used to celebrate everyone. It is more likely to be framed as dominance than shared aspiration. The burden of representing the stars and stripes isn't just to win. It is to amplify the best of us, to show what unites us. Victory isn't just about the accomplishments. It's about the striving that preceded it. Maybe that's what athletes must understand about sports in America now. Greatness doesn't only involve controlling the puck. Judgment is essential. Members of Team USA mastered the first part. They weren't as careful with the other. Now their historic triumph must compete for attention with their reckless after party. Well said. Well said. Like really, really well said. And then now there's this. This is an opinion piece. This is from Canada. And I thought that was really interesting because there's players that are American but play for a Canadian team. And it's interesting to see how that's going to be. The State of the Union was a zoo and Team USA the monkeys. Jesus Christ. It was only as they filed into the chamber inside Washington's Capitol building on Tuesday night, surrounded by hooting politicians, that it seemed to occur to Team USA what they had gotten themselves into. This was a zoo. They were the monkeys. In fairness, that is kind of what they do for a living. But that's on their own terms and for money. They are the stars of that show. On Tuesday, they were props for the actual star and got nothing for it but grief. The ones headed back to Canadian teams, Winnipeg's Connor Hellebuck and Toronto's Austin Matthews in particular, will never live it down. Hellebuck is the one that's the goalie that got the Medal of Freedom. Austin Matthews is the Toronto Maple Leafs captain. Matthews made things worse by showing up at the White House during the day, but skipping the State of the Union address at night. It shows that he got how it looked and tried to finesse his way through it. Sadly, for many NHLers, they don't teach finessing in high school. If you watch the video carefully, around the time the players are being encouraged to pump their fists and chant USA, you can see recognition dawning on a few faces that whatever this is not aggrandizing. Aggrandizing, increase the power, status, or wealth. Oh, I've never heard of that word. Okay, cool. It was a terrible idea, the whole thing. They could have just gone to a nightclub for 3 days and had everyone's phone confiscated at the door, but oh no, someone had to get ambitious. Ambition is at the core of this. In American pro terms, hockey is a third-class endeavor. This was Team USA's big chance to move to the front of the culture. They weren't ready for it. I think it was the sweaters. Going around in public dressed up like an early middle-aged glee club is not very Michael Jordan. It was the sweaters with the side of sycophancy. The USA players could have played this straight down the middle, been modest and self-effacing after their victory, kept the politics to one side. But where's the fun in that? How do you mine ore out of humility? They could not risk going in too hard on Canada. They all play with Canadians, many of whom have more juice than they do at work. No one who takes shots at Sidney Crosby is going to survive long in today's NHL. Evidently, their big idea was to lean hard into the red, white, and blue. Instead of sticking it to Canada, they'd stick it to the libs. For 72 hours, it would be frat house rules. That's how you end up beer bonging with the director of the FBI and going into hysterics when the president invites you over to his place. Some people were appalled. 20-something professional hockey players drawn to power, unaware of the troubles of their fellow citizens? To which I would say, are you serious? What do you think these people talk about when they're alone? Book clubbing the wretched of the earth? This is funny. This is really funny. They talk about sea-doos, watches, and stick tape. A lot of them went to college, but none of them actually went to college. They went to hockey. I'd be shocked if more than a handful of them had ever read a book that wasn't Harry Potter. Jesus Christ. Try to remember that these men were not raised to be independent thinkers. That would be antithetical to getting where they've gotten. They are designed from childhood to live in packs. It's true. Whenever a new alpha like the current US president wanders into their midst, even telephonically, their instinct is to roll over and start chittering. Hence the idiotic guffawing after Trump called them up right after they'd won gold and made a girls have cooties joke about the USA women's team. If he dared them to strip naked and go streaking on the ice, many of them would have done it. That's what being a hockey player is. A few US team members are being singled out as heroes for resisting the Trump allure, but those few have different hierarchies to worry about. Kyle Connor didn't show up. Maybe he disagrees with current US policies. Maybe he had an engagement party to attend. Maybe he gets that he has to go to work in Manitoba and is an indispensable superstar like Hellebuyck. Colorado's Brock Nelson didn't go. Maybe it's the politics. Or maybe he didn't like the idea of being seen to put himself above his social betters, Avalanche teammates Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, and Devin Towes, all of whom had reported back for duty. Yeah, Swayman and McAvoy. Going to the White House and then being stood up as props for the big show doesn't make Team USA suddenly bad. I'm pretty sure most of them didn't have a serious think about what it meant and will never do so. To them, it's viral content and a great picture for the hero wall at home. If the USA were to elect a communist, they'd have shown up to his party too. The only political bone in any of their bodies is the tax bone. Why do you think every hockey player loves Florida, but no one wants to go to California? Because they love swamps? It doesn't make them bad, rather it makes them not particularly smart or savvy. They were that way before they won anything. So what have we learned about this nonsense? Only one important thing, that pro athletes aren't your friends. With some exceptions, they don't think like you think. They don't share your priorities or views or understanding of how to be in the world because they live in a very different one. If they were to get the unfiltered truth of what a typical pro thinks about how things work, most workaday people would probably be somewhere between put off and repulsed. That doesn't mean you can't like the NHL. It means that liking it doesn't entail kidding yourself that everyone playing in it is a saint and a deep thinker. This was a great article.